Hi everyone, it's Allie. Today I have a different video for you. Usually, of course, I do book content all the time. I'm going to take a one video break from books to talk about board games. So I'm going to feature my top 10 board games from my collection that I own. I actually do have a pretty good board game collection as well as books. So I'll show you my favorite ones, the ones I always go to when I want to play a game. Without further ado, let's get to number 10. And number 10 is the only solo game I'm going to feature in this video, and that is Friday. Friday is kind of based off the book Robinson Crusoe in a way. Really, it's just a deserted island theme, and you play it by yourself. And basically, you are on a deserted island, and you are really weak and really stupid and make a lot of decisions that are likely to lead to your death. However, throughout the game, you build a deck that allows you to have a higher chance of survival. A lot of decisions have to be made that can also have benefits that outweigh the costs, but sometimes if you make a bad decision, you have a cost that outweighs the benefit. And you almost always die in this game. So I like that it's difficult. I like that I almost always die. And I like that I feel really accomplished when I'm able to find a strategy that works to actually win. So, Friday, my solo pick, number 10. Number 9 is King of Tokyo. This is a perfect game that you can play in 30 to 40 minutes with some friends. It doesn't take a lot of time, and it also is a game that you can play with even people who don't generally like to learn complicated board games, which is why I really like it. It's 2 to 6 players, and the theme is that you're all basically monsters like these shown right here, and you're trying to become the dominant monster. There's 2 different ways you can do this. One is you can become the most renowned. You can win through glory and from people knowing who you are as a monster, or you can kill off all your opponents. And I have seen both ways to win be used many different times, and it's always very fun. It's a dice rolling game, has a little bit of strategy, but it's also something that you can play with someone who is a little bit younger as well, so I have played this with children, and it's just really fun overall. So that's my number 9. That leads to my number 8, which is one of the games that really got me further into enjoying board games. So it does have a little bit of a nostalgic factor, and that game is Dominion. Dominion is a deck building game, but the theme surrounding it is you are an heir to a small kingdom and you are trying to grow that kingdom. You do so often through using different powers you can acquire on different cards, and ultimately you want more kingdom glory points or whatever they're called than all of your other opponents. It's really fun. It's a lot more for me about the logistics of figuring out how to win. The theme is very light. You don't really feel the theme a lot while you're playing the game, but learning how to use different card combinations in order to get more points than your opponents has always been really fun to me, and I almost always win this one, so my number 8 is Dominion. My number 7 is my favorite 2-player game, and I like it because of the ability it gives you to plan even before you start the game, which is just, I'm a big planner, and I'm usually able to take advantage of situations where I get to prepare to take someone down, and this is really good for that. It is Mage Wars Academy. The base game comes with a wizard or a sorcerer and a hunter, and all the different powers that they have. But basically you get a booklet like this for whoever you choose, and you get to go through a ton of different cards that you have options to use, and you only have so many points that you can do to get cards in your book. So you choose cards that you think will best help you out in the battle for the game. And at that point, you only have the cards you chose, and you play the game to try to defeat your opponent who has different powers than you. It's obviously better after you played it a couple times so you know who your opponent is. But something I like about this versus other games kind of in the same category is everyone has access to the cards that will give them the best advantage. It's not like if you've played longer than someone else, you have access to better cards than the other person. Everyone has access to good stuff. So it allows people to play these type of games without getting so immersed that it's the only thing you do and the only thing you do is acquire cards. You get to choose them, create them before the game, come up with a strategy and a plan, and hopefully take down your opponent when you get to the actual gameplay. So this is my favorite 2-player game because of that. My number 6 game is my replacement for the Risk category. I know that Risk is a game that a lot of people love. Risk drives me crazy. I don't like it. I feel like too much of the game depends on the first few rounds, And this game is better than that in that you have a chance of winning or using good strategies throughout the whole game. But it is about dominating a geographic location. It is about dominating a certain world. And that is Small World. So I guess I must also like it because there's a fantasy approach to it where Risk is just kind of like the normal world. But you get to play as different races on a fantasy world with different powers that are used to dominate this world. One catch though with this is not only do you need to know how to use the powers really well, but you also switch races throughout the game. So you have to choose when is the best time to retire one strategy and run one group of people and start new with a new one. So it has like a really dynamic feel to a world domination game, and no one's really out of the game as long as you know how to use those strategies. So this is my favorite world domination game, Small World. Okay, my number 5, I love nature. I've always loved hiking, and I just love scenery of the outdoors. And this game combines that also with my competitive nature at the same time, so I love it. And that is Photosynthesis. This game is up to 4 people. It's a shorter game, a little bit of an easier game, more like a strategy game, almost comparable to a strategy game like chess or something like that. That's like really basic, but in that same element. You are growing trees, and all of your opponents are growing trees as well. And you're trying to block the sunlight from their trees, so your trees grow faster and get you more points. So it's kind of like nature and pretty, and the board is beautiful as you have all these different colored trees that you're placing. But at the same time, it's also a little menacing as you are beating other people out by not allowing them to have sunlight. So Photosynthesis is a really fun game, and I love it. With games, I love cooperative and I love competitive games. Cooperative is when you play around the table and you're trying to win with everybody together. You either all win or you all lose. Competitive is a standard game where you're trying to beat everyone else. But this game, I feel like, has a really good mix between the two. There's cooperative elements, but it's ultimately competitive when it gets down to that. And that is Clank. I have Clank in space. I'm sure Clank plays pretty similarly. This is kind of like a heist game. You're building a deck, so it is a little bit of a deck builder, even though there's other elements going on as well. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to not make a lot of noise. As you make noise throughout the game, it is more likely that the ruler of the ship, Lord Arrakis, will find you and you will ultimately lose. His wrath goes up throughout the game as you make noise. You're trying to get rid of the cards that make noise, and you're trying to give you cards that will make you more likely to win the game. One thing that's interesting about this game, though, is you don't want your opponents to die. You want your opponents to be okay, but you ultimately want to beat them at the end. So you have to keep them good enough to not make your life worse as you're going through this heist, but you still want to end up getting a valuable possession that is better than theirs. Because you're all trying to get points throughout the game. You're trying to get the best things off the ship and out into space where you basically steal away with it and get the best loot. That mixture of you need your opponents to be okay, so you can't completely be terrible to them, but also it's ultimately competitive with what you take out at the end is a really cool mixture to me, so I really like this game for that. Number 3 is my favorite party game, so a game that you can play with a lot of people, easy enough to explain, and just ultimately really fun and uses a lot of reasoning and uses a lot of social skills to see what you can figure out about other people. And that is Deception Murder in Hong Kong, by far my favorite party game. This is a secret role game, so everyone is passed out a card with a different role. You might be the forensic investigator, which is someone who actually knows what murder went down. It is a murder game and gives everyone clues about the murder. The forensic scientist has to be silent so that they don't give away the answer, but they help through like really discreet clues that you have to kind of pick up on. Then you have a murderer. You may have an accomplice that is trying to help the murderer out, and the murderer is just trying to get away with it. They're trying to convince you that they're not the murderer, and they're trying to throw shade on everyone else so that they seem to be the murderer. And then everyone else is basically an investigator trying to figure out what happened, working with the forensic scientist to figure out who was the murderer. This is a really fun party game. Like I said, great social deduction skills are necessary. You get to really try to see who's lying and who's not, and there's a lot of clues that help you along the way to be able to reason out where it came from. Another reason I like this game more than a lot of other games like this is I see both sides win fairly frequently. The murderer can actually get away with it. It's a game where they can actually win. At the same time, the investigators win frequently as well. So it can go either way. It's really fun, and it's really good with up to 12 people, which is just something that's kind of unusual in a game and something that's really cool that actually works. My number 2 has a theme that was already kind of discussed with number 10 in that deserted island theme, but I love this one. This is my favorite cooperative game. Cooperative, like I mentioned before, meaning you either all lose or you all win. You are on a deserted island and there are different scenarios that you need to complete. So you get to choose what scenario or what game you're playing each time. So this game is actually like 9 different games in a box because of the different goals you might have. The most basic one, the number 1 that everyone starts with, is basically you are castaways on a deserted island. You need to find enough food and different things to live and live off of. You need to be able to stave off beasts and stay warm and safe. And while you're doing that, you need to build up a fire so that you can let people know that you are there. So that's kind of the theme around it, but it is really difficult. You have to have a lot of coordination with everyone around you, and you have to really communicate on what you're doing and take risks that don't always work out, and you don't always win. In fact, this is one of those games that is really hard to win. I know you will basically almost never win it on your first try. It will take several tries to be able to figure out. I really like those hard strategy games. I especially love the cooperative element where you have to work hard to come up with a strategy together that will actually work. So, love this for that. So, my favorite game, at least in this last year, I've loved playing this, and I keep bringing it out with anyone who was really getting into strategy games, is Root. I have a couple expansions for this as well, but I'll just show you the base game. Root is adorable to begin with. You are playing as little woodland creatures. Each person is playing as a different woodland creature. So, there's a cat, there's mice, there's birds, there's just a bunch of different ones. There's moles. I've played as moles before, super cute. And there's like religious lizard people. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. Each woodland creature has a different way of winning the game. So it's not just a space domination game that you would see in Risk, in games like Risk, kind of like Small World that I was talking about before. You're just trying to win the way that makes sense for your creatures to win. So, for example, the cats want to create like an industrial empire in the woods. They build a bunch of buildings, they go around and they try to connect them for that industry. The birds are like the old fallen regime that is trying to get back glory, so they have really strict rules that they have to play by that you have to actually deal with. Sometimes those rules keep you from doing things that are smart because it is so strict, and you have to try to get a lot of areas with them as well. But with some, you don't try to do that. So with the lizard cult, for example, you have to try to convert people to your religion, and that gives you points. Or with the mice, they are actually a revolutionary group. So if you are able to start revolutions, you get points that way. And there's a bunch of different types of things that you can play. But I love that each group has a different way of winning, and it's not just a space domination game. And you have to keep in mind what every other group is trying to do. It's like ultimate politics within a forest setting, and it's just really cute. Really full of strategy. You have to know who you're playing with and how they're going to play, and it's just really fun if you are really into board games, really into strategy, and have at least 3 hours to spare. So Root, my number 1. So those are my 10 favorite board games. I'll get back to books next video. I'm not going to do this frequently. But if you like board games as well and happen to also be watching my videos, let me know what your favorite board games are down below. Do you have any suggestions for me? Love all different levels of board games and all different styles of board games. So just let me know what your favorites are down in the comments. Make sure you give this video a like, and hopefully I'll see you later.